Hello. Let's talk about blocks. So, a block is a way to group bits of stuff that you've drawn without actually attaching them to one another permanently. It does make them act as one. So, if you want to move the whole unit, you can, without having to individually select bits and pieces and parts. You can also adjust blocks once they've been created, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So let's start by just taking a unit and turning it into a block. So this is just like a stock platform that we're going to be playing with for this tutorial. So when I go to create a block, I'm going to select it and I'm going to type block. That brings up this menu where it asks me to name the block and then specify an origin point or a base point. That's where there's a little grip that always goes with stuff that's kind of stock. That grip will be placed wherever you specify the neutral point to be or the base point to be. It gives you a section to specify which objects you want. If you have already selected something when you type block, it will already have those objects selected. So typically you don't actually have to do anything in this menu. And then in the behavior, usually I just leave allow exploding, and then the other two things I leave alone. If you're making a block that you're going to use over and over and over again, let's say that you've downloaded a block from a master or maybe you've drawn a stock piece of hardware that we have sitting around the theater, or in a drawer somewhere that somebody else might use. Let's say it's some kind of a bracket that we're going to use over and over again. It's useful to include a description so that people know exactly what the heck this is. If you are building it or drawing it based on a real object, it's useful to include a literal link to that object. Like if you're drawing something that we might purchase from BMI Theatrical Supply, include the link to it, because there are so many things that look a lot like other things but are not necessarily that exact thing, and it can be frustrating if you don't have any information about what it's actually supposed to be. So please include a description if you want that block to be permanent, or something that gets passed on and is useful for somebody else. Anyway, you can name your blocks whatever you want to. I find it useful to have some kind of a naming convention. I typically will do like what type of thing it is. So hardware. I'll put hardware in all caps. And then what it is. It's a bolt. And then the size. So that all of the bolts sort together. All of the rigging hardware sorts together. I might say rigging and then something else. But the most important thing is that you have a system for naming your blocks so that you don't have a disorganized mess of blocks in your drawing. For me, when I'm drawing units, I will usually block my units together based on what order and what way I plan on plating it. So for this unit, for right now, I'm just going to say, you know what, I just want this whole thing to act as one. So I'm going to name it dash 4x8. Actually, I'm going to follow my naming convention. I'm going to say platform, and I'm going to give it dimensions 4x8. For the location, I think I'm just going to say right there's the location that I want it to be. You can literally pick anywhere in the drawing. I do advise keeping it either at the 0, 0 of your drawing or somewhere on the drawing itself, somewhere on the part itself. Once I've selected that point, I'm going to click OK. And now this behaves as a single block. So you can see that the lid is attached to the rest of the frame. Let's take a second and kind of explore what that means. If I were to copy this, let's say I need a bunch of these, and I stick this right next to it. And then I realize that I want this one. This one actually needs to be 6 feet instead of 4 feet, or instead of, this one needs to be 6 feet instead of 8 feet. And then you go, well, crap, now I've blocked it together. What do I do about it? Well, you have a couple of options. One option is to edit this block as it is. If you do that, every instance of that block will then be updated to match it. So let's say that for some reason, instead of building 4x8s, I'm building 4x6s. I don't know why you would do that, but let's say that you do. So there's a couple of ways that you can edit it. I can go in there and edit it using block edit, where I type bedit. It's going to ask me which one I want to edit. I'm going to say that one. And then it brings me into this kind of different window that has a different color background. And you can change it back, but I can edit this in here. So let's say that I want this to be 6 feet instead of 8 feet. Let me just make that adjustment really quick. That goes 24 inches away. This fella is going to get deleted. This one moves to here. I totally could use slice. That might have been faster, but that's okay. Okay, so I have changed this block from being 4 feet by 8 feet to now 4 feet by 6 feet. In order to make sure that that goes back through, I'm going to click Close Block Editor, and when it asks me, I'm going to say yes, save the changes to the platform. If you have made a mistake and you don't want to preserve it, click the other one. It'll be fine. So save the changes, and now you'll notice that this instance also changed. So both of those instances of that block are now 4 foot by 6 foot. This can be really, really handy, especially if you have a bunch of things that are built the exact same way and you notice that you need to make a small change. It's absolutely fantastic for that kind of thing, but it does mean that you need to be careful, because if you're using multiple instances and you don't necessarily want all of them to behave the same way, you're better off to explode the block, make the edit, and then save it as a different block. So let's say that that's actually what I should have done. I don't want to Control Z backwards, because you can get yourself into some sadness if you Control Z in and out of block edits. I'm going to say that I do want this 4x6 block, but I also want a 4x8 block. So I'm going to explode this. I'm going to move this back to where it was, 24 inches away. And then I'm going to use that to adjust my framing. Heyo. That. I need to put my toggle back in. I will just mirror that. I'm not positive if that landed right. Yeah, that looks right. Okay. So now I have this block, which is named 4x8, and I have this block, or this future block that actually is 4x8. So something I'm going to do really quick is just rename the one that I named before, the one that is currently in there as a 4x8 block. I typed the command rename, I selected the blocks menu, and I'm going to click on this one that says dash platform 4x8, and I'm going to rename it to 4x6. Great. So now this one, if I look at the properties, is named 4x6, and that leaves platform 4x8 to be named itself again. Lovely. Great. So now this is a block, and this is another block. So if I needed to insert these, let's say that I have my stock platform block, and I want to be able to insert it somewhere else, but maybe I've deleted it out of this drawing. Oh no, how do I put that back in? So the easiest way is to go to bring up your block menu. If you don't have this tab over there already, you can just type insert. You could also get there by going up here and then saying insert. Once I have this menu open though, I typically just, keep it. So let's say that I want to put that 4x8 back in. I'm going to click and drag, and there it is. Look at that. Hey, friend. Let's say I want to bring that 4x6 back in. I can click and place it. Lovely. Okay, so let's say that I have done this to my block, but I'm realizing, like, I get ready to go plate and put this on paper and realize that I don't want to show this with the skin on it. Like, I want to remove the lid so that people can see the internal framing. That's totally okay, but now you're like, well, how do I do that? Do I have to explode this block? And the answer is no, because there's something called ref edit. Ref edit can be used for blocks as well as other things that you have brought in from somewhere else that has been imported. So ref edit stands for reference edit. So if you have an XREF, you can edit the original document using XREF. If I'm being honest, I would not recommend that method, because if you do it on XREFs, your computer just gets grumpy. Just don't do it. Make the change in the actual document. However, for blocks, this is fantastic. So I'm going to type reference edit, or ref edit, and it's going to say, which one do you want to edit? I'm going to say that one. And then I have a whole bunch of other options. So pay attention up here. The biggest option is this: add it to the working set or remove from the working set. So that means that if I don't want this in that block anymore, I can say ref set A or R. A is for add, R is for remove, or I can just click. So I'm going to say remove spacebar, and then I say this one. And now you'll see that the color has changed and I only have the frame in my drawing. I'm going to type ref C for close. It's going to say, do you want to save the changes? And I'm going to say yes. It's going to say great. And now my frame behaves as one and my lid behaves separately. Lovely. Let's say that this, once again, I'm going to isolate that. Let's say that this once again wants to be a 6-foot platform again. I know, we keep going back and forth between this 6 and 8. Can I still make that change? And the answer is absolutely you can, and you can do that with ref edit. So I'm back into that same menu. I've typed ref E to bring up this. I'm clicking OK. And now I can treat this as any other drawing would be. I'm going to close that. I'm going to unisolate everything else so we can see. Oh, there isn't anything else in here. Whoops. Let me bring in this platform. Here's where this gets really, really great. So the ref edit option. Let's say that for some reason this is sitting 2 feet over there, and I drew this before, but now it needs to interact with this thing. Or, you know what, let's do something a little bit bonkers. Let's say that these two things are offset by a little bit. So it's 2 feet in there, over there, but then this needs to notch around this. Why someone would build it this way, I don't know, but this is not a technical design video. This is a block edit video. Okay, so now I have this thing that I want to edit relative to this, and this thing relative that I need to edit relative to this, or whichever direction. So let's do this one first. Well, this isn't actually a block, so I'm just going to slice it and make it the right size. Slice. Grab this. Yes, that one. Slice. Get rid of that offcut. Oh, it didn't slice in the right angle. Control Z, Control Z. Let me put it in top view so I can do this better. Slice. There to there. Space bar. Get rid of that. Join these back together. Great. So now my lids are the right shape, but my framing is still incorrect. So now I'm going to use that ref edit situation to do that. I'm going to get rid of this lid because I don't need to see it. And I'm going to ref E this. So I'm going to say yes, reference edit that. So doing that means that I still have this stuff that I can use to cut or to show me where I need to slice this. So I'm literally going to slice this piece of framing right here, use the lid on the other platform. I don't know if that went the right direction. It did not, but that's okay. I will fix in a moment. There we go. That looked better. Yep, I can delete that. And let's say, well, that needs to move over, clearly. So I can move this relative to this other platform, put it back in place. And there's no danger of me changing what I've done over here because I'm not even allowed to access it. Like if I move this, it's gonna go, this wasn't in the working set. You can't move that, friend, which is actually really, really lovely because then I can't accidentally change something that I'm not trying to change. This is really useful for if you're working on something that's kind of complicated. Okay, so now that framing matches this other thing. I'm going to say, yep, that's exactly what I want it to look like. I'm going to say ref, close, save it. And now I have this. And there are these two things. So then you might be wondering, well, what if I do want this whole thing to act as a single block? Well, I can still do that. I can say block that. And I can say, I'm going to call this platform wonky because it is wonky. And instead of picking the point, I'm just going to leave it at 0, 0, 0. I'm going to click yes. So now this all behaves as one thing. I don't necessarily advise this for this type of thing, mostly because I do want to plate that lid and that frame separately. So I wouldn't actually do this in a show. What I would do, let's say that I'm putting casters on something. If I'm putting casters on here, I absolutely will just put the block of the caster inside the block of my unit so that it always lives together with whichever thing that it's going to live with. So there is that. But so let's say I added that lid in and I really didn't want to, so I'm just going to ref edit, say it's that one, and say ref set, remove. There we go. Ref close. And now they are two different objects again. And the reason I did that is because if I need to go plate something, I want it to be separate. Okay. I hope that helped. Let me know if you have questions about blocks. You know what? Let me talk about something else really quick. So the other option here is to use groups. And I don't, oh, by the way, I just typed explode to explode the block so that it would stop acting as one. I'm going to hide this friend. Bye, friend. Explode. So now all of these components are separate. So there are other things that you can do. You can absolutely group these together like that. And I just typed group and that makes them act as one. But this isn't as versatile as the block. For one thing, I don't have a menu of like all of my groups in the same way. And I can't edit the group the same way that I can edit the block. So I personally will use groups for things that are temporary. And then once I'm pretty much done drawing the object, I will then group it together so that it continues to act the same way. Continues to act as one thing until I'm ready to go plate it. And I'm always very careful about how I block things together. And then if I'm not very careful, it doesn't even matter because I can go and change it anyway. So it's just a really useful way to manage the stuff that you're looking at so that you can have as few visual things in your drawing as possible. It's absolutely fantastic. So there is that. I'm going to do another video about dynamic blocks because those are also a really, really powerful tool that we typically use with, with things like plating. So I hope that helps. If you have questions, let me know. Until then, have a good one.